It's the Hex Late Show with 43 OG and Hex Tangent right here. How you going, brother?
Yeah, good. Yeah, really good, man. I'm loving the Hex price. Absolutely loving it.
Can we look at it? That's what this. Hang on. That's what. Let me just get rid of us two for a second so people can see the chart from the low, the local low to the where we are at the moment. Isn't it magnificent?
Oh, like your background is that the real chart? So that's the Hex chart. Oh, nice.
That's the Hex chart from the low where it got down to like 1.7 cents, and now it's 6.5 cents or whatever. In the course of how long has it been? Is it a month? How long has it been?
Yeah, 2 months, like since the start of the year, basically.
Yep.
So just under 2 months.
It's crazy. What a great start to the year.
Absolutely crazy. Yeah, dude.
And do you think it's on the back of like that we seem to be getting closer to like Pulse launch? And the thing, like I saw like some tweets from Richard Hart in the last day or two. Did you see those tweets?
Yeah. He tweeted the chart.
Yeah, no, but he tweeted about PulseChain. It was like a PulseChain update, and there was something in there that we didn't know up until that tweet.
Shit! What was that?
It's like you know how like with ETH with ETH and with a whole load of other EVMs, like for example, I think Gnosis Chain does it as well, has it as well, because it's like the same, like it's an ETH chain. They also like you can't withdraw your deposits yet because they're waiting for that. I'm not sure if it's the Shanghai upgrade.
Oh yeah, yes. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that's one change we didn't know about. So that's going to be
that it won't cause a delay because they can just add it later.
They can add it later. It just means that if you're going to be a validator, that you won't be able to withdraw your deposit.
Yeah. Sick.
Yeah.
Wait.
I mean, it's the same as it is on ETH.
Oh shit.
You know.
Oh, that is actually quite hectic.
And you confirmed it's 32 million ETH. Pulse, I should say. 32 million Pulse to be a validator.
Oh, that's actually a really good point. That's actually a really good point. You won't be able to withdraw your Pulse.
You won't be able to be a validator. So
32 million Pulse.
But look, I'm not going to try and say, oh, that's better than being able to withdraw your Pulse. Obviously, being able to withdraw your Pulse whenever you like is the best case scenario. However, that's the way it is on ETH. That's the way it is on some other EVM chains. And that's the way it's going to be on Pulse until that upgrade happens. And if you look at it from a price perspective, I guess that's better, isn't it? Because those validators aren't going to be able to dump those Pulse on the market.
So the counter argument that I've heard over on ETH, and it's the reverse twice, i.e., it's the argument for people on ETH say when that unlock occurs, the price is going to dump because people are going to be able to get access to the ETH. And the counter that I've heard is it could encourage more people to lock up because they're confident that they can get it back whenever they want. So the counter argument here would be, so if you think, it's good because it means people who lock can't unlock, but it's bad because there might be less people willing to lock without that confidence that they can get their shit back when they need it. So it could go either way.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. I mean, it's hard to know. It's going to go the way it goes, and it is what it is.
We don't get a choice. So
ETH is going to hold a lot of people back from being a validator.
You mean Pulse? So
I don't think it's going to hold a lot of people back. I think they're going to get stuck into it. But talking about getting stuck into it, we've got some people who are coming on soon. But before we do, let's just jump into very quickly. Like there was a Twitter Spaces a couple of days ago where you were talking about seed phrases and passphrases and like the complexity within. And this all started when we had a discussion. It was probably, I want to say it was like around August last year. And we sort of, I guess we got stuck into it. And there was, I guess both of us maybe didn't use the right terminology in how we were discussing things. And what resulted is us not understanding each other. But when we break it down to what you were meaning to say,
yeah, then
you
we agree.
were meaning to say that brute forcing private keys, like if you're brute forcing private keys, the passphrase makes no difference to that. Right.
Yes.
And the reason we were like disagreeing on it back then is because when you said it, you said seed phrase.
Yeah.
But we've since worked out that that's not what you meant.
Yeah,
you meant
I admit that the terms that I used to explain it at the time, it would have been a lot better if I'd thought about it more and used the actual strict correct terms rather than just sort of like launching into it. It came back up because someone tweeted something about the passphrase, and I said no, it doesn't make a difference. So my position
I've got someone, I've got Hex hang out in the green room. I'm going to bring him up so he can be a part of the discussion.
Yeah, sure. So my position is simple, and I'll just say,
how are you, mate?
Hey, man.
Hey,
so basically, good. It's just this one simple statement. The passphrase only protects you against people finding your words. That's all it protects you against. It does not increase the entropy. It does not increase the amount of bits. It does not increase the encryption level. Your encryption, like the chance of someone landing on your shit by accident in a brute force attack, like i.e. going and just guessing shit to try and find your password, like the ultimate password, the binary, like that binary string, it does not change statistically. Like the probability of someone landing on it is identical whether or not you have a passphrase. There is no difference. It only protects you against someone finding the words, and in that, when they put those words in, it will take them to the wrong wallet. But the wallet that you do land on when you use the words and the passphrase is within the same set of equal length binary. So the binary string, they are all the same length. They are 256. Well, depending on how many words were in your seed phrase. So the number of words in your seed phrase, if you're using a 12-word seed phrase or a 24-word seed phrase, that does change the entropy. The passphrase that you add on as an additional word to either of those numbers of words makes no difference to the entropy. So that's been my position, and I perhaps didn't explain it well enough when we argued about it the first time, but I was very clear about it this round in all the Twitter spaces that are on Twitter and shit. So I believe that you have a decent argument for why you disagreed with me at the time. So we can agree to disagree on that. But anyone who stepped to me in the recent shit has got no excuse, because I've been using the correct terms this time to explain it.
Nice. I'm glad to see that you care about this stuff. That's awesome.
Do you have an opinion on this? Like, do you like, you know, were you a part of, like, did you listen to any of the Twitter spaces or see any of the stuff on Twitter with people arguing about this?
Yeah, I saw it go by, and yeah, and I refreshed it because every time I learn about this stuff, I have to get it back in my brain. And yeah, I guess Papa B will be on in a minute. He's booting up.
Oh yeah, he's here right now.
Oh, hey, nice. Yeah, I guess to kind of set the stage for coming in on my side. Yeah, at the end of the day, what we're talking about are two different things. Is your keys, your 512 binary private keys, and also the seed phrase. So you have your seed phrase, and it's always about protect your seed, never give your seed out. and your seed words, your passphrase, and that generates your key material at the end of the day.
Yep.
So it is true that no matter what, you're always using a passphrase. You always have the word mnemonic in there. And indeed, if you use the word dog as your passphrase is actually mnemonic dog. And so, and no matter what happens, you can never stop using the passphrase. Like, it's in the standard. Everyone has one, they just don't know it. So I guess Papa B's trying to rejoin.
but my point was, with those passphrases, you know how like people can have different length. You can add different length passphrases. You can actually have a whole nother seed phrase as your passphrase and that sort of thing. So for anyone who is arguing against me, saying that that thing actually does impact the entropy and does actually change the number of bits in your encryption, it would mean that every single person is running different encryption levels if you were actually including that in the entropy. So that's how I knew I was right even before I could prove it mathematically, because that would make no sense. Like, that would make no sense for everyone's encryption level to be completely different. So
that's true. Yeah.
So I guess the biggest mistake that people, or the like, I think you're already hitting on what confused people was, they were thinking about the words rather than what it actually represents, which underlying those words is it's those words just represent the binary string that is your private key.
Oh yeah. And not all words can turn into a private key. So
that's true.
And so when you're typing in, you can your last word is a checksum. And well, the last bit of the last word is a checksum. So you can actually reduce the search space for all possible seed phrases that people could be using on their ledger trezor by saying only words that would pass the checksum. But also you can reduce the search space. So I guess at the crux, if people
I see what you're saying.
If everyone is using the same base material, then you can kind of chop down your space that you have to guess at the end of the day. And
you know, something I was thinking about before coming on the stream, Day 43 and I were messaging each other just as like in preparation. And so I was thinking probably not all of the actual potential combinations of ones and zeros that make up that string would actually have a representation by the words. So like so what you said about how not all words can be used to represent those strings, not all strings necessarily have a word version of them like that fits within bit 39. So obviously those keys still are valid to the network, but it's just they will never be represented by words because that's a restricted set.
Yeah. And then that same idea extends to the passphrase, where if you're using if you're using the word mnemonic or the default passphrase, then you can severely limit so when you get into what's happening, you're doing a SHA-512, you're using PBK DF2, and you're passing in your mnemonic words as the input, and you're using the passphrase as the salt. And so if you can know the salt because it's default to mnemonic, then you can start to limit, you can narrow your guesses. And by a fairly large chunk. Hey, Papa B.
Wait, so would you say that so that possibly one of the advantages of using that passphrase is that it could actually take you outside of the set that is generatable by words?
I mean, that's definitely
it's possible, right? It's possible because I see it as a modifier. Like I see that last word, it's effectively just a modifier. So you still end up with a string that is equal length. So if you're trying to brute force directly to that string, it's going to make no difference to the probability of finding it. But if someone is brute forcing with a tool that only uses bit 39 compatible words, then they might never get to your your string if you are using a passphrase. So that would be one thing I will admit that I hadn't thought of previously.
I'm sorry, you have me at a disadvantage because I'm coming late into this conversation. Covered already, because for some reason we're starting early. But anyway, can you guys catch me up a little bit so I don't put my mouth, because I would like to talk to that. Go ahead.
43.
Yeah, okay.
Were you?
But can you get me up to speed, because
we started early because I saw Hex hang out in the green room, and I thought,
and I think 43 wanted to give the background as well to the viewers, like just sort of like background, and we probably did go a little bit too far beyond the background.
Cool.
I guess
because I'd like to, because my instinct is to jump into what you just said, and I don't want to step.
So I'll try and do a quick representation. Is that my position the entire time has been that the passphrase doesn't actually change the difficulty if you were trying to brute force but I do admit that I didn't do a very good job of explaining that the first time that 43 and I discussed it. And I was using private key and the term seed phrase interchangeably, when technically that caused some confusion and was technically incorrect. So I meant to say is
confused me.
The private key that is generated by that set of words, not the set of words themselves. So
right. So can I roll it back a little bit and kind of go back to what Dave 43 and I discussed offline after we got rugged from the chat, because it's true that you and I were speaking like Greek to German. It was kind of a little bit crazy, but I'm sure if we would settle down and get the nomenclature correct and get what we were trying to actually say correct. Dave 43 being the voice of reason, obviously in our community, it takes a quorum to kind of settle things down and to get into some kind of standardized, language. And Dave 43 did an excellent job of pulling me aside and saying, hold on a second, there are all these aspects in which I think we were talking about private keys versus seeds, and the two, we were kind of scratching our heads, and then quite maturely, Dave 43 also said, we have to establish the correct question before we can go and look for the answer. And that was very deep.
Just to be clear, though, I'm pretty sure that in this most recent rounds of discussions that have occurred on Twitter and Twitter Spaces, I was actually using the correct terms. It was only in that old stream, August of last year, that I used the wrong word.
No. I'm not saying that you were using any incorrect terms whatsoever. I'm saying that if we don't have the question established, then both of us are answering two different questions.
Yes.
So that was very deep. So what I did is I took that to heart, and to the best of my ability, I reached out to Hex Hangout, whom we have this roundtable thing going on. A man that has the in-depth knowledge as an authority on exactly what I think we're trying to get to the bottom of, and
cool.
fed in the best of my understanding of what the problem was, and what he fed back. And we're going to touch on today, or maybe already started, I don't know, but is something very, very interesting. And that is that, it goes to the root of what is hashing and why, as Dave 43 and I experienced when he went to the Ian Coleman site, that there is no expansion or contraction. There's no difference in the actual length of the private key. Now, we didn't look into the actual binary length, but we know that that's established at 2 to the 512th power, correct? And the question then is, why is it, and Tangent, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were saying that there's no standardized way of encryption if a passphrase can be both one character up to 100 characters on a hardware wallet, for example.
If that was allowed to change the entropy, it would completely fuck everything up.
Well, yes and no. And we'll get to the heart of that, because Hex Hangout has an excellent answer for that. And I wanted to kind of set the stage for him to answer, because he enlightened me. But most importantly, before we truly begin, is that when you come up with kind of these ideas of how you understand security, and these are very deep, dark things, right? It deals with whether or not you're safe, whether or not it's easy to brute force, whether or not it'll happen in your lifetime. You have to I think it behooves us to check with other practitioners like today. This is a perfect forum to have 4 people in this chat, some of which know some things, one of which knows maybe a great deal more in one certain aspect of this, and then
That's
have the
me.
discussion.
I'm
Yeah,
just
no,
kidding.
no. Okay, that's you.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
It may be. I think all of us have our forte, but together we're a very practical and
I
serious
may have already learned something,
thing.
even though I kind of taught it to myself, like as in just thinking about it with that idea that in terms of, because I was my position was the passphrase only protects you, only provides additional protection against someone finding the physical words being written down. Against brute forcing, it has no advantage. But then I think now I'm actually changing my position to, if someone is brute forcing with an algorithm that only looks for words, like only uses words to generate. So if they're brute forcing literally using ones and zeros, then it makes no difference. But if they're brute forcing with a limited set based on that bit 39 dictionary, then it does make a difference, because it could move you outside of the set. Yes. So a library attack then.
Yeah, and Hex Hangout will go into that as well. He's very, very knowledgeable about that specific attack. There's 3 different attacks that you would consider, right? And again, I was enlightened, as I always am, from Hex Hangout's knowledge in the field, because he's a professional. But I would say that you've touched on another important point. Let's focus this though in different chunks. Okay, let's focus this discussion so that we can attack each little question that you may have.
Yeah.
And one more.
I have a question actually.
Of course. But just one more little thing I wanted to say to the audience is that, we're delving into this together, and you're looking at a process where we are educating ourselves, and our responsibility to you when we are practitioners in this community is to get it straight, and then we'll tell you what we think. And if you ever doubt us, you check with another one of us and rope us all in, and that's how we're stronger. So again, let's frame it in little bite-sized chunks. The first thing is, how does the passphrase affect the key? Correct? Okay. Yep. And then why when I was talking to you, Tangent, I touched on something, and I want Hex Hangout to explain why there's a default passphrase active even if you aren't using a passphrase. And that answers to one of your initial kind of questions or comments on the stream, which was, well, what if I don't use one, right? And why is it the same length every time? Why does the key remain the same length? So I turn the mic over to Hex Hangout to open that part of the discussion up. Hex Hangout, it's all you.
Sure. So at the root of all of this is hashing, and hashing gives you a constant output of regardless of what you put in. In this case, 512 is the output, and hashing is essentially encryption, one-way encryption. And you put in your material, your data that you want to hash, which is your 24 seed words, and you use the salt, which is the second part of the material, to randomize your starting location, or it kind of spins all the wheels to a random setting before you start your encryption. And so, or hashing. And so in this case, you're starting, you have to have by default, your salt could be 0, but in this case, the salt is mnemonic, which your 24 words are called your mnemonic phrase. And in the before time, in the old Bitcoin time, you could just make up your own words, but that was highly brute forcible. And now we do nice random words, and it's randomly chosen by a machine for you. And so now we're using a salt to randomize the starting configuration, and then that makes your search space for when you do encrypt your words or hash your words, the outcome is more unpredictable. Yeah. And that's the high level why we have a mnemonic passphrase. But there's some other things we'll get to for there. There's really nice use cases for the passphrase that go well beyond the randomness, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Cool.
And then what is the did you guys already cover what the default passphrase is, even when you don't use one?
No.
All right.
So that's interesting. What is it? What is it? Is it just all blank characters?
It's the word mnemonic.
Oh, okay. So the word mnemonic gets, so if you don't use one, that's what is used.
Right.
And the software knows that. The software knows if you say, I'm not using it, and you're putting the words in, it just does it for you.
Right. And
cool. Oh shit, Papa B's frozen.
I think what he's saying is, indeed, even if you do pick a passphrase, it actually adds the word mnemonic to the beginning.
So even if you do, it'll say, so it'll be mnemonic and then whatever you do. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So if you do the passphrase dog, your passphrase is actually mnemonic dog.
Oh, you did say that. Sorry, you did say that. Yeah, sorry. You did actually say that. Yeah. So I guess the main question, and I'm jumping right to the end with this question, but like,
I think Papa B might be frozen.
Please, yeah, I noticed that before. Please keep this in mind as what realistically the answer that I want to get out of this. Not to sound like this is a selfish mission, but so Richard Hart made a comment at one point where he said, it's actually very important that you add a 25th word.
Yes.
And I disagree with that in terms of that importance, because in my mind, like, so I still have that position where if you think that someone might stumble across your words somehow, like someone who you don't want to have access to your shit, then it is important. But if you're confident that you've got your seed phrase in a location that no one can get to, like bank deposit box or your own shit, or you're storing it in your mind, so there is no physical location for people to get to, then I don't think it's really that important to have, because statistically, just for someone to be able to brute force, because really there's only two attacks, right? Someone finding the words or someone guessing the seed. So
there's a third one.
Please.
So there's the wrench attack where you're going through.
Then they'll just tell you they want the password as well. So they'll just wrench attack you and say, tell me all 25 words. So,
but that's the upside of the 25th word is you can have an infinite number of 25th words. Like you can always
lie. Then you could just lie. Like you could also just lie. Like,
and you can't lie about you have a ledger and you're in the airport and they say you only get to leave the airport when you unlock the ledger, and it has your 24 words in there. You can unlock the ledger and let them proceed. You could give them a passphrase and they could go in and look at it. They could steal it if they want. And you can always have another passphrase.
I see what you're saying.
So, and it also helps, like, if you've been in crypto for a while, you might have 10 physical seeds, and instead you could have one physical seed and 10 passphrases. And so you can have multiple seeds. On the ledger, you can bind the passphrase to another PIN code, so you can have a second PIN code to unlock it. But that's pretty cool. It creates a deniable, or I forget the exact word, but it's
plausible deniability.
Plausible deniability.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's always another possibility that you could have another seed phrase. Yeah.
I didn't think of that. That's actually very cool that you could have the same 24 words for all your hardware wallets. And you could have, like, say like it's dog, like you could have dog 1, dog 2, dog 3, dog 4, dog 5 could be all your things. So you would remember all of those very easily, but they generate completely different. That's actually pretty cool, rather than having like multiple sets of these words written down.
Right. But tangent one thing, there's a difference between the security that you get in the physical world, right? That HEX Hangout is just kind of laid out. But the question is, back to your point about the worry about a brute force attack and whether or not you're getting better security on the digital side, right? I would offer you this. At least one of the known attacks, a dictionary attack, for example, right, would be a lot more difficult if you had a complex passphrase on top of your seed. And here's why. We've established that there is a base standard default of the word mnemonic on everybody's wallets already, right? So let me ask you a question, and I'm sorry I deal in analogies. And I tried to start it, but it got all screwed up when we were on stream before. But if I told you that you have a house key, which is unique, right, to your lock in your house, and then you can also have a deadbolt on top of that, but you would choose, I would give you the option, would you choose either a deadbolt with a standard, key that everyone has that doesn't make an actual selection to have a unique key? Or would you want to establish your own unique key and have yours only work in your lock? For example, your bottom door lock works with a unique key, but the attacker could easily come across or find one of those common keys to make the deadbolt work. Would you feel
everyone already owns the key, that everyone already knows the key or whatever for the
correct.
top one.
So the first thing that the robber would do if he gets into the bottom key is he would at least try the default, right? So in brute forcing, they
won't know. But they won't know whether that default password is the correct one or not unless they've also because the door stays locked until they have both.
But your
question, they don't know whether you've got that passphrase on there or not.
Let's frame the question. The question is there mathematically any difference, and from a security standpoint, is there any difference between having a passphrase or not, right? When it comes to brute forcing.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to offer to
I'll
that.
clarify. I've already worked it out. Like, as in, the difference is only the type of brute forcing you're doing. If you're doing the bit 39 dictionary attack, then it does make a difference. But if you're just doing straight to the binary, you're just doing ones and zeros and just guessing those combinations of ones and zeros. It makes no difference.
But it does, because the default also is okay. So
because you're going through every combination, in the set.
No. Okay,
so you're going through every combination in the set.
Because if it's a known passphrase, you wipe out 2 to the 256th of the actual part that you're trying to brute force. You want the 2 to the 512th, right? That's what you're entitled to. But you're actually a known value for half of that. You're screwing yourself out of a great deal of security.
But they don't know anything about it. So the attacker doesn't know anything about it.
They don't have to.
They don't know that they don't even know I use bit 39. They're literally just running through every combination. They're starting with 001 and going through every combination. They're just literally brute forcing binaries.
Right, I know. There's a big difference. So let me see if I understand this correctly. Your concern is that 512 bits of encryption is somehow hackable by brute force in this day and age.
No, I never said that. This was always a theoretical discussion. This was always just mathematically theoretical.
Right.
Hold on.
Okay.
The reason it came up is because people were talking about what if someone makes a quantum computer that can more quickly solve this than classical computers, and then someone said, just add a really complex passphrase, and I said that doesn't help. Because if you've got a hardcore computer that can go through and crack this more efficiently, it doesn't give a shit how you've stored your shit because it's going through every binary.
Okay,
it's just smashing them all.
So then let's establish that there's a amazing computer in some
quantum computer or whatever that can just go through.
The quantum we have today, right? So let's imagine that there's an uber quantum in the future, and that uber quantum can simply brute force 512 bits of encryption, and it can go from 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1 all the way through the last possible one, which is a staggering amount of numbers. But that's okay. Let's imagine it's possible. Would you know? Okay.
Well, that's how the argument started up on Twitter. Someone said just add a passphrase, and I said it doesn't.
It's okay. No, and I would say it does because let's imagine in that scheme, but it does. If you imagine that it
because the set's the same size. The number of things it needs to check through is identical. It doesn't change.
Papa B, finish your thought. I just want to hear what you're. Just finish off that thought. I want to hear it.
Okay. No, I'm just saying that if you're considering a brute force attack, if you began in the middle of the set, then yes. Or if you do randomly selecting in the set, yes, then randomly there's no difference at all. However, a brute force attack, like we just kind of threw out there in your mind, the way that human mind goes, they would try either the beginning or the back end of the set, and they would start brute attacking it at the easiest point of entry. The easiest point of entry is what I'm saying would be understanding that at least that default passphrase is entered in, because it's easier to brute force the first half of the set than the second half of the set.
Look, I know I didn't really I never defined the type of brute force attack. So I'll admit that I should have been more specific when I was saying that to people on Twitter. But you're also now introducing an assumption here that
okay.
So and all you're theoretically doing is making you so this is your attempt to do something that my analogy would be when people try to hack people's passwords, they typically download a list off the dark web or whatever that has all the passwords that were used, that were leaked when there have been data breaches. And they start with that set because
very good.
If someone has reused a password or something like that, it helps that it's probable that might be more likely. But if we're talking mathematical theoretically,
yes,
the probability of guessing someone's password, because you don't know that about their password, you don't know that they're a dumbass with the way that they've done it, or that the mathematical probability
this is binary, by the way. Right?
How many guesses you can do, how fast you can do the guesses, and how many total possibilities there are within the set. And I'm just saying, because the string length, the binary string, never changes in length, as per the Ian Coleman tool showed us when we checked it. Like when you add the passphrase, it does not change the length. It means that statistically, every guess you do is just as you've got just as much probability that each time you guess that you're going to find the right code or not. But
your probability is lower, is what I'm saying. The probability is lower by a significant order of magnitude if you know half of the equation already. And in this case, through what Hex Hangout just said,
no, because that passphrase it's only a modifier. It just takes you to a different binary. The binary is the same. It's the same length. Although Hex Hangout, disagree with me if you want.
On. Can you jump in, Hex Hangout? Just
sure.
I might turn up your volume a bit.
Sure. Ironically, I think you're both right. So if you take so let's kind of reduce it over to how the 24 works. So the 24 has the last word is basically a checksum that makes 1 out of 1,024 possible combinations correct, and the rest of them incorrect. And so you can say 1 out of 1,024 is possible, and the rest of them aren't possible. And so you can kind of reduce your search space. And the same thing in a way is kind of possible in the binary level, where you can start weeding out whole swaths of possibilities and trying to say, I've identified the 50% of the search space that is possible. And so every time you do a guess, you have the same probability, but because you know the incoming state and the incoming possibilities, you can say only this 50% was possible. And so I think you're both right.
Can I say something? So what Papa B is basically saying is, if the attacker starts with an assumption that narrows the set of search, and that assumption turns out to be correct, then it will be faster for them to get to your password. But they have to start with a correct assumption. They have to make a correct.
There's a reason that assumption is so powerful, because
it's because how many people do it? How many people?
And imagine you assumed that there was the default and they weren't using the passphrase in a Twitter space. How many people are that? And so if you covered the entire search space of no passphrase, you got all those people. But if you did the passphrase of dog, now you get 1 out of 1 million people, 1 out of 1 billion people.
So does that mean, I guess then the next question becomes, if we agree with that this whole thing, if they make an assumption and that assumption is correct, then you can brute force faster to the binary, because you're narrowing the search space within that set. Then the next question becomes, is that reduction significant enough that even if we're talking about this theoretical situation where these quantum computers become powerful enough that they're actually able to do it quicker, is it actually going to be enough difference in time between them getting that reduced set compared to the whole set, or are they basically, is it going to be like, you know what I mean? Like if it's going through passwords that quickly, is it only going to be marginal difference before they just get it anyway, even with the passphrase?
So there's two different types of attacks. Unfortunately, there's what we have with computers today with like brute forcing possibilities and linear, and then there's quantum computers. So if you're talking about a linear search space with like a supercomputer, and we have computers you can see from space because they are so big, like, throw it. Oh yeah. Throw in like NSA Utah, like data centers, like you can see them from space.
So
like,
are you saying that the computers, if they were to allocate that computer or these large computers to trying to break someone's hardware wallet, like mnemonic, that they might actually have a chance of doing it within a reasonable time frame?
Well, we can go on a tangent in a little bit, and I can tell you if they turn that machine on, that they wouldn't even need to brute force it. But we can talk about the backdoor that was removed. Anyways, okay.
So you're saying they don't need quantum to break?
Well, we removed a backdoor that would have stopped them from just walking right through, which goes to the NSA data center, and Punchline Snowden helped us. Anyways, okay, to your question, can you brute force it with a normal computer? So if you're not using a passphrase, it reduces the order of magnitude by, say, the total search space is about 150 zeros. And if you're using a passphrase, then you get the whole search space. If you're not using a passphrase, you get about half that number of zeros. So think about,
obviously the attacker has to tell the software to reduce the search space, which means that they're risking that they might not find the password at all if you are using a passphrase. And if they start at search, I see what you're saying. You could tell it search everything, but start with the ones that are no passphrase. And then if you haven't got it by the time you get to the end of that, then continue on with all the rest of them.
And this actually kind of happened in early Bitcoin. We had something called brain wallets where you picked your own passphrase. And
I remember that shit got swept quick.
Right? And the people that picked the stupid words got hit super quick.
And anyone that used anything that was like a phrase within a well-known book or any kind of like sentences that make sense so that it's easy to remember, immediately swept. Like people,
The number of people.
So that's a great example of what you guys are talking about. That if you can think of a way to narrow the search space down for some reason that you believe humans will do, and in this case, it's slackness of not using a passphrase, then you may as well prioritize those. Sorry, Papa B, you were going to say or.
I'm sorry. There's a delay. I don't mean to talk over you. Please.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. You go.
I'm delayed. No. You've touched on the entire crux of my position. So now that you did this convince you now that there's a quantifiable, mathematical difference? Okay.
Yeah, you guys have successfully changed my mind to say that there is a difference, even in a brute force attack, with the parameters that I set, because of that prioritization that you would do. So it's still to do with how you would set up the brute force attack. And so even though I was correct that the ultimate search space does not change because it's binary strings of a fixed length, because of this thing in terms of like how you prioritize which ones it's going to check first. It's similar to that analogy that I gave with using known password lists as a way of prioritizing the brute force. So then the next question becomes, so we've answered two big questions here so far. One is, does it make a difference in theory? Kind of the answers, like it doesn't change the ultimate search space. That's one of the answers that we have, which is why I thought I was right about all of this. Then does it impact that ability? Does it have a practical impact? And the answer is actually yes. But now the next question becomes, if you have a hardware wallet so you've got your thing set up and you've got something that can't be moved like a HEX stake, then you are basically fucked, right? Like you can't
bolt on a passphrase.
You can't bolt on a passphrase. So why are you laughing, 43?
You're fucked.
Yeah.
Wait, let's be realistic about this.
Let's say. Yeah.
Let's be realistic about this. When he said half the number of zeros, right? So it's like say someone with a 24-word seed phrase with no passphrase. Are you saying that's similar to if you did 12 words with a like it's
okay? Can I answer that concern?
It's still super difficult for someone to brute force this shit. It's not fucking, right. Sorry.
I want to give you the zeros, and then I want Hex Hangout to answer in terms of how long it would take to brute force this based on the technology we have, and the technology that he knows probably exists in the dark corners of the earth. Okay, so you're potentially stressed out about the difference between 14 quator vigintillion and 13 followed by 171 zeros rather than like 96. So are you going to stay up at night with your eyes open looking at the ceiling knowing that you've got either 96 zeros of possibility against somebody finding your wallet, or 171 zeros, which is really the maximum amount with 100 keys in the passphrase? And the answer is, what does that really mean in the scheme of things, Hex Hangout? Between 20, it's actually 23 to the 2048th power, or 105 to the 100th power. Which is the?
They're both impractical to
they're both seriously hard to crack in a brute forcing attack maneuver. Hitting you on the head with a wrench, and then you wake up with drugs and waterboarding looking at you right in the face. That's a 1 out of 1 chance. But this one, if we just talk about brute forcing, right?
You're going to give them the shit. If they're torturing you, you're going to give them the shit.
Of course. So I would be up at night worrying about that. Is my physical security handled? Am I doxxed? Am I known as where's my location?
They're going to give you the shit, and then they're going to fucking kill you.
Exactly. It's true.
Right.
They're going to kill you anyway, so don't give them your secret.
Don't give them your shit. Exactly.
I know why I'm laughing at that. This shit ain't funny at all.
Yeah. So Hex Hangout, what from a technical point of view in this day and age, what do we really have to fear in terms of brute forcing those types of numbers? Either a 24-word passphrase, 24-word seed phrase, or a 24-word plus 100 character seed passphrase with the seed.
With up to 100.
Yeah. Up to 100, yes.
And so, for the audience, I would say the analogy would be you could have a key for your front door, and each little bump is a peg tumbler, and you can either have 100 of them or 200 of them, and still an average thief is not going to pick 100. So computers today, it's practically impossible. So we're using we're using SHA-512. There is SHA-256, obviously half the size, and Google was able to create a file, I think it's a PDF file, that had a hash collision. And so they were basically able to guess one time a collision, and it breaks all sorts of things. So Google was able to break something one time half the size. And so that's kind of the order of magnitude. And maybe governments are 10 times as strong as Google or 100 times as strong as Google. And so, but if you look into the future with Moore's law, you're thinking about doubling. And so how many years before we're looking?
When you say Google did one half the size, but that's the exponent, right?
Yeah.
So when you say if we assume that governments are like 100 more, that's not even anywhere close to what the sort of shit that we're using currently.
Yep. And then over every couple of years, we're doubling. So we're removing one digit. We're doubling in power. And so it's we
also even that is going up exponentially itself, like in terms of the
oh yeah.
I've got a question, Hex Hangout. Once you
yeah, go for it.
It's if they like if it gets, let's say you can easily crack these these seed phrases. Let's say it gets to that point.
Sure.
What happens? Like what is the solution?
you lose your hex, bro.
Is
your
there
Bitcoin is gone.
to that?
Move it to a new wallet.
Let's break it down in a few ways.
Legacy hex stakes, yeah. So
legacy hex stakes.
15
years.
One's done in MetaMask. One's done in MetaMask with no passphrase.
Well, that's a whole other problem. So on the upside, every time someone brute forces, it costs them electricity. And so, I mean, we can ignore we can tackle the quantum mechanics super magic future, but it costs a certain amount of electricity to brute force. And if that electricity costs more than your bags, then it's not a winning proposition for a thief, but maybe a government that just wants to cause damage.
And they can see the size of your bags publicly on the chain.
Yeah. I mean, if they have the keys, if they found them.
So theoretically, keeping your bags small per address would potentially, it is a security improvement.
Of course.
I mean, yeah.
Yes.
And kind of like animals.
Even just moving your liquid, like if you had liquid and stakes, just moving your liquid to a more secure wallet, and so reducing the total amount of dollar value in the wallet that is still on the lower security would help.
Well, and in a practical day-to-day, you could think about having one hardware wallet that has your 24 with all of your stakes on it. And then when you get liquid, you could have another hardware wallet with your 24 plus a passphrase and be draining it over. And now you have two ledgers, and one of them you pull out every 2 years for your staking ladder, and the other one you degen with if you want.
Nice.
Yeah. But
so sorry to cut you off, but I'm just thinking, so you know how I said, I was saying earlier in a space that basically the risk of someone effing up and forgetting that 25th word, because typically they say you're not supposed to store the 25th word with the 24 because it means that it doesn't provide you that protection against someone finding the shit, right? However, if the threat vector that you're more concerned about is this one that we're talking about here, where it's like a brute force style attack from a nation state, and you're convinced that your shit will not get found, or if you were the sort of person that was using 24 anyway with no passphrase, then theoretically when someone finds that piece of paper, they've already got your shit. So you could just write the 25th word down. So now if you get amnesia, or you get knocked on the head, or you forget the shit, or you like whatever reason, or you want it to be inheritance where you actually want the person to be able to get it with just that piece of paper, all of that is solved by adding the 25th word. It's no worse than the security that you had from that perspective when you just had 24, but you've moved yourself outside of that set that they can quickly brute force. And I think that is probably the best one for noobs.
That is what we profess. That's exactly what we profess.
So that's what you guys have been saying is 25 words all written together. Noob mode. No,
do not know. What you're worried about, the limitation of responsibility and understanding on how to practically obfuscate, not have it right reading, and then splitting it up geographically.
Someone might forget the 25th word.
Right. No, you never trust a brain wallet. You never trust a meat computer.
I agree.
We always profess to back up your seeds and back up your passphrase and split them up geographically. That could be one in the nightstand and one under your toilet. I don't care, but it's got to be not in the obvious same location on the same sheet.
Toilet.
So
I hide everything under my toilet, man. Everything.
Can I disagree with Papa Bone?
Andreas,
on this very important point. Do not
Andreas
hide the
says
under the toilet.
Right on.
It's
right.
a terrible place to hide it. You get some sort of drainage, sewage problem.
Right.
Seed phrase gone.
Actually, I put mine right into the septic
under the
tank.
bidet.
Yeah, under the bidet.
It's a much better
It
place.
actually comes out. Mine in Japan, it's automatic, and then you flip it over, and there's my seed. That's exactly right.
Andreas Antonopoulos actually advises against doing that sort of shit in terms of
No.
like splitting your seed up and stuff like that. He reckons you shouldn't do it.
Let me explain. And Andreas Antonopoulos says, do not simply split up your seeds in an A, B, B, C, A, C manner, because then you actually compromise the encryption. That means that the attacker that actually gets those pieces, that's too simple. You've actually destroyed, like for a 12-word seed, you got 8 of the words, right? It's easy to brute force that, or it's conceivable to brute force that now. But if you employ, what we say is you have to employ something called Shamir secret sharing, which replaces the decoys to maintain. And these are randomly picked as well, usually through a hardware wallet, or if you do it manually, fine. But again, we already covered that some obvious problems with that. But if you were to at least replace the proper amount of decoys for each plate to have 24 words, you would be maintaining the integrity of the encryption. That's what Antonopoulos says.
Is the shit. Shamir's is
There's
the
actually
shit.
an Ian Coleman tool that you can use for Shamir.
Yes.
Yep. You obviously need to be very, very careful with that, because you can't lose that program. If you lose that program, also
you shouldn't be doing it on a computer. Like, really,
you could do it on a Model T, on a Trezor Model T. Trezor Model T allows.
You do it when I say not on a computer, not on a
do it on an
normal general purpose computer.
Something that never touches.
Technically, a hardware wallet is a computer. It's a computer with one purpose. But so when I said don't do it on a computer, that's nonsense. What I mean is a general purpose computer, what people think of as a computer.
Right.
Like if you use Ian Coleman's tool to do it, it's you're a bit freer, like with how it works. Like you can sort of play around with it. You can put in. I'm not sure. I've never used the Trezor one. Please tell me. Can you use a pre-existing seed phrase and then split that up with the Trezor, or do you have to just start from the start? And does it create the whole thing?
That's a good question. The answer is, to the best of my knowledge, the Trezor Model T asks you whether or not you want to do an advanced backup using Shamir secret sharing at the time of generating of the seed. So you would generate it. Yes, okay. But with the Ian Coleman generation, the problem is you actually have to. Correct me if I'm wrong with this one. This is why I didn't use it. Is you actually have to type in the seeds that you want to create with the with the Shamir secret sharing directly into your keyboard. So why would you do that? Right?
That's what I'm saying. It's too high risk doing it on a computer.
If you've got a dedicated offline computer that never touches the internet,
no. You should never, under any circumstance, ever type your key into any keyboard ever, into any computer ever. Can you
drill a bit deeper into that?
Sure.
Why, like a dedicated offline computer that never touches the internet, never going to touch the internet, why that would not be okay to do?
I would say there's 3 reasons. One is your keyboard. Every time you press a key, it actually sends out a radio frequency. You can set up a little scanner next to your keyboard and actually hear the key presses. And I mean, in the extreme sense, you're kind of exposing that data to the electrical world. Or if it's showing up on your screen, then your screen sends out a frequency. If you save it to the hard drive, you basically have to destroy that hard drive or encrypt it before you put the data on there to ensure that it's actually not saved on the hard drive. So unless you plan to, if your seed ever touches the hard drive, then you need to really physically destroy that hard drive and make sure.
Hard disk drive.
You're opening up so much attack surface by using something digital. And you've got to be absolutely sure. Now, if you ever connect that computer later to the internet, that's why you should never even take photos of your shit with a digital camera, even if you're sure you're not going to plug it into the internet, shit like that. It's like pen and paper. It has to be no digital shit, no scanners, no cameras, no computers, because you just never know. It's just too much risk that you are going to fuck it up.
I think that what you guys are talking about here is very, very fringe.
No,
stuff.
it's
Yeah,
not.
I
No,
think
it's
it
not.
is.
No, it's not.
Like,
This is
I
not
don't think-
like NSA like tapping your shit, like looking into your stuff. It's like you just don't, like, when your shit is worth millions of dollars years later, you don't want that little thing in the back of your mind where you're like, am I absolutely sure that when I was doing that shit that I didn't leak any, like, that every single possible leak of how that shit could be, like, get out to be knowledgeable by someone else.
So if you're sitting in a Faraday cage and you've got,
But do you have a
computer that's
Faraday
never
cage?
touched
That's fringe.
No, but I'm
Like,
asking, is there any
I'll-
situation where you will save
Oh,
something in
there's-
this?
Hexing Out Loud's got lots of these analogies. Go ahead, man.
I'll give you an example that Andreas says. He says when he takes a computer and wants to, like, make it true, because you said I'll just use a fully offline computer. He said that as a security expert, as a hardware and security expert, he's an expert in all of these fields that matter. It takes him about 3 days to get a computer from off the shelf to him feeling confident that he can use it as a truly not connectable, fully deconnected computer, or you just go and buy a hardware wallet, right? Like, as in that, he's basically saying for noobs, just go and get the device that has been designed to not have any functionality other than storing private keys and signing shit. So it's like, I think you're being too complacent with what you grab a computer that you think is offline, and then you don't know. China could have put some backdoor shit.
I just think is offline. It would need to be like, I would need to be happy with what's.
Yeah, but your level of being happy with it is not enough. Like,
Dave 43, if I may,
of being happy with it is fucking, like, very high,
right.
man.
Yeah, okay,
Very,
Dave 43.
very
Can I explain to you that I made for the last 10 years of my career, of 25 years in security, I was dealing with quote air gap systems. So when I went to go debate with the security guys from these major facilities, these manufacturing facilities that were multinational things, that if they were offline for a day, they would lose $1 billion, that type of thing. Constantly, I would sit down at the table. The first discussion was these guys with crossed arms says, we're air gapped. And I said to them, okay, explain to me what your system topology is, and I'll show you where the gaps fall short, because there's no fucking such thing as an air gapped system. If you're talking about the consumer level, anything that you could possibly touch in your life, there's always going to be a time when some kind of electrified object is going to be placed into it to update it, or to make it connect to do the things that you like it to do, or to seal the back doors even. You're going to have that thing on some kind of network at some point where you're going to have a gap. There's going to be
like something's
a
going to
risk.
bridge the gap.
There's risk. And what I'm telling you is, just like Tangent says, to be cavalier about it and say, I'm the authority and I feel comfortable, that's okay. But if you want to boil it down to the real
I just think that I'm not saying I'm the authority on it. I just think my shit's fucking way tighter than your shit. That's all.
I agree, and I would agree.
But there's an amount of money. There's an amount of money where you get to a point where you'll be like, shit, I wish I didn't do that. Like, as in, if your shit becomes worth $100 million, $1 billion, $10 billion,
you need to
$1 trillion.
You need to keep. That's why I like being in these discussions, because you need to keep upgrading your security posture.
I'll give you an example, but this one is fringe.
Especially if you're Hex.
I'll give you an example. This one is fringe. This one's like this is not a domestic attack vector, right? But this is one that was crazy that I heard. They had these air-gapped computers that were in Faraday cages, and someone went in and accessed them. Like, so they had to have physical access, but they installed software on the computer that would use the network light to flash Morse code to be able to say what was going on with on the computer. And then they set up a camera outside the Faraday cage that monitors that shit. And then from a remote location, they were able to decode the Morse code off those flashing lights. And so from this apparently air gap Faraday cage out the ass, high level military spec, fucking whatever you want, they were able to take the data, or like know what people were doing on that computer and affect, like, so from, because, and like Papa B was saying, that's a way that now the way they're bridging that gap is it's a visual. They're using light, like they're using a flashing light and a fucking video camera. So there's no data crossing, but there is data crossing in the form of Morse code.
There's even wilder shit, and I'm going to tell Hex Hangout to hold his tongue because we have to save something for our security roundtable. But the stories that he knows and the technology that he has told to me, made the rest of my hair fall out, because it goes, it's beyond just the visual. We're talking about sound waves and I don't know what you would call it. Energy that's stored in plant material and shit like that, and it's all real and it's all out there, and it's all done from faraway locations to wherever you are. Your privacy is a thing of the past, and the good thing is that people don't care about privacy, because we've seen that in the market. But security, on the other hand, this breaches the whole security thing. If you're thinking like Day 43 on this astral plane, you fail to see the entire width and breadth of what is possible from lasers and sound waves and shit like that.
And I'm sure you'll agree with this, Papa B. There is a certain amount of safety being in the herd. I would consider myself in the herd. I'm not like some big high-tech company that's a target. I'm just some regular dude who's got regular operating systems on all my regular computers for work, that does all regular shit. And then there's just some other shit that is very tight, that's totally like got nothing to do with any of that shit, and none of it ever crosses paths. So I think there's levels, man. There's levels of shit. I'm not gonna sit here. I know that I can tell that Hex Hangout is knows what he's talking about. I just think there's things that there's ways, and I'm sure there's ways to crack all of this shit. But they have to know that you're a target. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you have to be a target. And being in the herd helps with that as well.
Yeah, they reckon one advantage in one security strategy is for people to not know that you've got crypto. Like that's
out the fucking window, isn't it?
By the way, I guess it's about now that can I shill our roundtable discussion?
Of course, of course.
Okay, because I really want to say that this is a very important. We're trying to build a very useful and important practical way of getting all of our practitioners in our community, all the important minds, to contribute to what is our best practices. Because people just throw that term around, and some people are so turned off by it now, they just switch right off. But we haven't written things down. We don't have an actual code of conduct when it comes to handling our crypto as hexagons and pulsicans. So what Hex Hangout and I have done is we've opened up this, every 2 weeks we have this roundtable discussion where everyone can come in, throw out a security topic that is interesting to them, have a discussion like what we've explored here today, which is, I learn every time we have these discussions, which is the key point, is that you come in without an ego, you throw out your assumptions, you get somebody inevitably in the chat that challenges that, and then we all contribute until we reach consensus. And this is kind of an ever-growing learning experience in our community, and no other community has this type of openness. So why not take full advantage of it and join us every 2 weeks on our Twitter space? You'll see it being tweeted out by Hex Hangout and myself. I hope that you guys join as well, because there's some pretty deep things that Hex Hangout brings up, some real enlightening stuff. We get experienced professionals in all walks of life, all different professions. For example, we deal with not just encryption and best practices around that, but also, elements like fire safety or metallurgy or anything that we need to actually enter into the mix to be able to up our security posture. We have to look at that. Did you know, for example, this is something kind of random that came out of one of these discussions offline, but we'll bring it up again, is that when you're making your backups, if you're using those the fender washer technique, that you have to actually get a separate grade of stainless steel between your nut and your bolt. Otherwise, you'll suffer galling. And galling is a seizing up of the action of the bolt and the nut together. So that's something that, of course, I remember back in grade school, they told us that metal can seize up because if it's the same grade, it actually passes electrons and neutrons. It exchanges on the atomic level. So it's crazy shit like that will always help us out.
Can I ask Papa
But if
is that the
the
one
washers
with
are
the
loose
bolt
enough,
and the washers?
Yep.
The bolt and the washers, right?
Yes.
That's
so if they're loose enough, couldn't you just still read each letter without having to undo the screw?
But that would
The bolt, sorry, the nut,
but
sorry.
because you wouldn't want to do that, because you would compromise the fire resistant qualities of actually keeping them sandwiched together, because the mass and the amount of heat that can pass through, you want to have them tight together because it's a one piece of metal, right?
I've got a question, right? So when you unscrew that,
yes,
right, after 10 years of having it like safe and that,
yes,
you've got it there, 10 years,
yes,
you get it, you're unscrewing it carefully, you're being really careful.
Yep.
Unscrew it. And then as the bolt comes off the end, you fucking sneeze and shit goes fucking everywhere.
Easy. They're numbered.
Okay, perfect. There you go.
You have enough surface area on the fender washer to both number, of course, obfuscate it as well, right? So if you're going to mix them up and have some kind of obfuscation, you're going to also document that somewhere else. So you have your secret recipe offsite, or under a desk somewhere else that no one, if they got it, would make sense of what it has to do anything with. Your pirate treasure map bullshit. But if you have them not right reading but in number order, obviously you can reconstitute the stack. It's easy. That one you don't have to obfuscate the number in which they come in order. It's a overkill. So,
and also you have the checksum. The 24th word is actually the word that has to be correctly aligned, and so there's only maybe 2 combinations of the 24 that work. So with a little bit of computer, you could brute force it in a matter of seconds which one is the correct order, just because the checksum will only work in one order.
As long as you have 24 in the right place, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're screwed. But you're not screwed because you don't have 2046. You don't have 2048 anymore. You've got 24, and they're known.
Is that only would be like that if you've put a whole word on each washer, rather than if you've done one letter per washer, then
that's an obfuscation, right? That's something you have to write down. One letter per washer is not advisable. If you want to save space, you can take the number that it appears on the BIP39 compliant list, and then you could do a Roman cipher and phase that by an order of, some equation that you have written down somewhere else. No, it's simpler than you think, right?
Sounds like people are going to fuck that up.
No, it's simpler than you think.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of considerations, guys, that you also, like, for people who travel.
True.
I went to Europe for 6 months. I'll be damned if I'm leaving my shit in a country just sitting around for someone to find for 6 months, right?
Sure.
And I'll be damned if I'm going through Australian security with all my shit just ready to be unlocked by, Australian authorities who can ask you for passwords and you have to comply.
I sort of subscribe to. Sorry, you go.
No. I'm sorry. There's a delay on my line, so please.
I subscribe to Andreas Antonopoulos as like, you want to keep this shit as simple as possible and not extend. Like, you don't want to think that you're increasing your security, but you're actually adding a level of complexity that is too much for you to manage. You want to keep it as simple as possible. So you want to get that balance of like simplicity and security.
It's true, but what's simple to you, not necessarily as simple as possible.
Per person.
Right.
Per person.
Well, I would say what is manageable, right? What you think is manageable in case you have brain injury, right?
That's what he says. Outside of your, you don't want to go outside of your capability or your technical capability or your
It's good policy, but as a noob onboarding them, I would not hold back teaching them about, let's say, a passphrase and good hygiene in terms of splitting those two things up and hiding them in two different places, right? Everyone can understand that there's two pieces. If you introduce them to Shamir secret sharing, now you've got fault tolerance, disaster recovery. Someone will say to me, I'm really worried that my house is going to catch on fire. We've had 2 fires in our community that I know of. Yes. And if you work out the math, that's not, a tremendously small amount of likelihood that you in your life will experience possibly a house fire. Either your house catches on fire itself or your next door neighbor's catches on fire or something happens like that. We've had 2 in our community and they've been able to recover. Why? Because they had the shit redundantly set up off-site so they could reconstitute their seeds. Both of them were great. We're very grateful to have listened to what we said in the Telegram chat and have taken that upon themselves to do it, because otherwise they would have been absolutely fucked. So, again, do you make it too complex? No, you don't. You don't go like 8,000 different which ways, and then you have to call your babushka mama in Russia and get the final piece of the equation, and then do the higher math to be able to unlock that stuff. You don't have to be a Vitalik uterine. Vitalik, yeah.
That's what Vitalik did.
Yeah, using a Gnosis safe, he was able to do that, which is great if you're smart and you play things safe like Vitalik Buterin, and he has the entire amount of his wealth, all of his Ethereum in one Gnosis safe in one freaking wallet. Then you would want to kind of take those measures to make sure that you don't get cleaned out, when everyone on the earth would love to hack that one guy, right?
I think that tonight's stream has been an amazing advertisement for your security spaces, because I have certainly changed my mind and also learnt things. And I didn't expect that. Like, I thought I was right about this shit. And even though there were components of this that I still think I was like right about in theory, the more important thing is the like the overall the overall knowledge that actually matters to how you are doing your shit in crypto. That matters more than a specific component of like the mathematical theory that underpins these concepts.
Yeah, and that's great. See, but the truth is that we all learn, right? Through this type of discussion, this type of exchange, there's no way that we don't all learn something that we can put into practice. But most importantly, when we profess outside to the rest of the community members, we can pass on that knowledge from a more clear perspective and come back into the fold to bounce things off each other. For example, I was able to draw Hex Hangout into this discussion today. I look to him as my, authority to look out, to bring into it, because Day 43 and I were stumped, or we couldn't communicate it properly. It always takes a quorum to have things put out on the table and put them together again and figure what is the truth, right? So that's why we have this discussion online, and that's why we have this twice a week or once every 2 weeks type of session.
Wait, so let's hear these things from Hex Hangout. Let's hear these things from Hex Hangout.
Makes a good comment here. I just want to bring that up. And all of this shit means nothing if you sign a dodgy contract.
That is true.
Well, not like, so not if it doesn't immediately drain your shit and then the part of the attack requires a signature, then having a hardware wallet does protect you, because they don't have the physical device to be able to sign the shit to do the second part of the attack. So if the contract does it all in one, where it drains all your shit and steals all your shit with that one signature, then yes, you're effed. But if it's like a 2-stage process where you're signing something that gives like an allowance, but then when they go to actually steal your shit, there's another signature that needs to be done. Does that sound legit, Hex Hangout and Papa B? In terms of like a hardware wallet is still better.
Oh, than a software wallet?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're fucked if you use a software wallet. Like
you're basically fucked. Like
yeah. Well, last year they basically open sourced the software to steal software wallets. So like now every malware basically now looks for crypto keys. So it's like And it's why not?
You're
Like
soon
they're
to get
talking
you're soon to get effed. Like as in
Go
you're
check it out
you're
on
on
the
the
dark
clock.
web.
You're on the clock.
It's probably really cheap, that software as well. It's probably
It's free. It's open source.
It's free. Oh, it's open source.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's called Mars Stealer. It's awesome. You can go find it and play with it and fuck people over.
Yeah.
I recommend it.
So
It used
so
to
I
cost
guess-
$180, but now it's free. You say, great.
Yeah.
Now it's free.
So
It's all-
basically,
go check it
that's
out on the dark web.
part of the education that goes on in this Twitter space that Papa B is promoting is if we can pass this information on throughout the community so that people are less likely to lose their funds. Because remember that hackers are quick to dump. So
Oh yeah.
if someone gets hacked, even though it's not your funds being stolen, it's going to impact the HEX price. So like if we as a team are protected against this shit, then, you know, it's better for everyone.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. And what we're trying to do is to make the security simple and default. Like when you get in the car, you don't have to think about security. It's just routine. It's default. And so it's, back up your seed on metal, stamp it. Only the first 4 letters matter. If you're a pleb, use the word dog. Use the letter A. I don't give a shit. Just use something for a passphrase. And someone comes and steals your 24, put a little bit of fluff in the 24 so they walk away happy. And so someone breaks in your house, steals your 24, they get $100 or $1,000 and they're happy. They're not going to bother brute forcing shit. And so, and it's like, keep it simple. How do we make this default? And what you said, Tangent, was perfect of you're using a secured computer. So when you type into the screen, the numbers are randomized. So you're not leaving fingerprints that are recoverable. When you're typing, it doesn't have someone can't listen to the pattern and be able to figure it out. That's why everything is so randomized on the screen. And it's built from the ground up to be secure. And yeah, that's not what a laptop is. That's what a hardware wallet is. And so it's like, here's a $60 toy that'll get you a shitload of security. And make it easy, make it default. Yeah, keep it simple.
Hey, can I ask a question about these fake wallets, right? So
Sure.
that was advertised at one point in terms of this idea of having, so that if someone's like, give us your money, you can go into a wallet that's your fake wallet. Is that always done through this idea of a passphrase? Are they one and the same? Or do some of these wallets have software that kind of takes you to different without actually modifying the passphrase, so no passphrase, but it's just how it's just generating different keys or some shit.
Can I just jump in? The Trezor, like the interface of the Trezor T, you
like
can
different,
just put
like
in,
a different pin. Like
no, not a pin. There's a pin. There can be a pin, but that's like you can put in a part, like any passphrase you like. Like it doesn't store a passphrase in there. Mm-hmm. Like you just put in it when it's time to put in the passphrase. You can put in any passphrase you want, and then you'll just get a new set of accounts.
Yeah. But I guess my question is, do all the like fake accounts work like that, where they're actually utilizing this idea of a passphrase to get you those different accounts, or do some of them actually have a different method?
Are you talking about hidden account? Because it's not a fake account.
Yeah. Sorry.
Hidden
Yes.
Okay.
Like the hidden account shit. Yes. Yeah. Is this all one and the same thing, or is that different?
It's accessible through a passphrase.
Hidden account's just a passphrase protected account.
So it is all the same shit. It is all the same shit.
Yes.
Cool. Yep.
Yeah, we
do
try.
Like the Ledger and the Trezor they're a bit different. Like I think the Trezor gives you a bit more flexibility with different, like multiple passphrases and entering them at the moment that you need to use them. Whereas with the Ledger, it's a bit different. You can put it in. You can do one immediately, but typing in passphrases in the Trezor in the Ledger is very time consuming.
Yeah.
And you don't.
And in the Ledger, you bind the passphrase in the device, and you bind it to. You can bind it to another PIN code, or you can just use it temporarily. And so you don't have to disclose or remember or use the passphrase repeatedly. On the Trezor, you have to enter it. And I hear some people enter it on the computer, which gives me some concern. Like, no? Okay, good.
No. No. Well, I'm sure people do it. I've heard people justify it, and I'm like, you guys are out of your fucking mind,
right?
You know, if you're typing that stuff into a computer.
There's a good, better, and best, right? So we try to profess the best. If people say, well, I don't want to because not convenient, I don't have time for that shit.
And one nice use for the passphrase is in longevity. And so passing on to family members, you could give everyone in your family your 24, and then you could give each individual human their own passphrase. And upon your death, your lawyer can give out the passphrases, or you could give them each their passphrase and your lawyer has the 24. And not until you combine these two key materials do you have your longevity pass on. And everyone will choose something different. And these you
can even let them choose their own password, like their own passphrase.
And they could have a 30-character random. They could have the one thing is you want to not be a dictionary attack where it's not just a set of random words, and you want to be over 6 or 8 characters. And try to make it easy.
Sorry, can you repeat that last bit? You don't want to have it less than or more than 6?
Oh, so let's say you chose random special characters and you chose 6, or then 6 might be brute forceable. 3 is brute forceable. If you choose 8, 10, 12, as long as you're over that, like they can just brute force it. Like 8, 12 is starting to get into, it's not worth it to brute force it. Like electricity costs money and money is bags. So, and then if you just choose like 3 random words, then if they were doing a dictionary attack, they could brute force the 3 random words, but you're technically over the 12 character limit. So you want to be longer than 8 or 10, and you want to have randomness. So you could pick the word apple, and you could replace the A with 3 stars and a pound symbol. And then you're theoretically outside of a dictionary attack, and you're long enough to not be brute forced. So, ideas.
Could you use the? Is something wrong?
Oh,
no,
it was.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah.
Could you?
I just said apple with 3 stars. That's what you said, right? Just everyone's
3 stars
down now.
Doxed.
Yep.
Sorry, tangent. What were you saying?
No, it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So Hex Hangout, are you going to drop some of these scary, like Papa B said, you need to get a balance between not unleashing the full fear of what you want to say for the spaces, but like to give people some idea of why to take this shit seriously, like a teaser on why, like what's out there that people need, that people are maybe not aware of, that'll help them to take this shit seriously.
Oh, sure. And I dropped it in last space. So we had a backdoor in Bitcoin and Ethereum back in the day. So we use elliptic curve digital signing algorithm. That's how you sign. And the place that is defined is from a group called the NIST. And they define the encryption, and NIST uses industry standards to define the best practices.
Oh, yeah.
That's a US government organization.
I heard about this.
Yep. National Institute for Science and Technology. Yeah, US. Yeah. And this is a worldwide cohort of cryptologists and the best of the best. And so they defined elliptic curve digital signing. They pulled it from a company, RSA, and RSA, it was disclosed in the Snowden leaks that RSA, the company, had taken a project payment from the NSA to put a backdoor in their implementation of elliptic curve digital signing. And when RSA put the back door in, the NSA was able to give that to the NIST and make that the recommendation. Hey, RSA is using this. And that became the PCI DSS standard. So that is the standard for credit card and financial transactions. And so elliptic curve digital signing had a backdoor in the random number generator. And that turned out, when they turn that computer on, they don't need to brute force, because your 24 came from a random number generator. Your elliptic curve is using your key combined with a random number generator. And the random number generator was the weak point. And so the elliptic curve digital signing, if you knew the random number generator, you could actually rip the key out of the stream. And so you could just look at people signing and be able to pull the key out from that. And so when you add a little bit of wetware randomness, so your passphrase is not from the random number generator, and in a lot of secure apps, you'll have to move your finger on the screen to create randomness, because the random number generators were all vulnerable in all of the hardware, in your computer, in your networking hardware, in your phone. All of the random number generators were backdoored. And so Snowden pointed it out, we closed it, and Bitcoin and Ethereum both use elliptic curve digital signing. And that's why it's like, well, they're just on levels. Like, yeah. But
and you know, like, just a bit of trivia, the S in RSA stands for Shamir. The trivia there for it.
They are OG. Yeah. And then they got caught taking money to put backdoors in, and now their name is trash. So fuck them.
Yeah, but they still hold the conferences that everybody has to go to in the IT world.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's a fun world.
You guys, like, would you how much do you trust the randomness of the seed phrases generated by these hardware wallets? And do you think that generating your own is better if you're flipping a coin? If you can be better?
If you generate your own, you have to figure out the 24th word to be your checksum. So, I mean, get a piece of paper and some code. Like, and to bone up on this topic, I went and found the BIP39 code base. I went and found the reference implementations. I found the Trezor implementation of BIP39. And so,
what's theirs called? Slip 39. Do they call it Slip 39, or is it still?
I think it was.
Trezor?
I mean, the reference implementation I found was still BIP39, but they have multiple reference implementations. So, I mean, that could be. It's actually on my research list to figure out what the random number generator in the ledger and Trezor is. So, I trust it. Yeah,
I heard that the Trezor one, it's sound based, like it's got like from electrical noise and background noise or whatever. It's like that is how it generates the randomness.
Cool. I mean,
that might be wrong. That's I just remember reading that somewhere.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I have yet to run those down, but I guarantee someone spent months figuring out the random number generator, and it was on a secure device. So if I trusted any random number generator in the world, it would be the Ledger Trezor. Yeah.
Hey, how much of that security issue of the random number not being random, how much of that is still lingering in like products and things that we're using? Like, do we need to be concerned that there could still be, is it something that once they shut the door on it, it just back fixes everything that was vulnerable?
I would say if you live in the US, then you have very little concern of your random number generators. If you live in Russia, you should probably be shitting yourself. So it'd be a shame. Yeah. But I mean, Snowden really disclosed a lot of the most lethal of them that were deployed on the public, but he didn't disclose the ones that weren't deployed on the public. So, yeah.
Okay.
Snowden's hardcore. He's like, disconnect the mic on your phone, never use Wi-Fi on your phone. Like, he's at the nth
No.
level of.
He actually said that you have to choose the security level that matches your threat vectors. He said you have to assess what threat vectors you have, because he's like, not all of you are a Snowden. Like, not all of you need to go and out into the woods and live in a Faraday cage. Like, you assess the threat vectors, and then you and then based on that assumption, you choose that balance between convenience and security. And he also says that sometimes in that attempt, it's like counterintuitive. Sometimes in that attempt to become more secure, you actually end up becoming less secure. And I think Richard maybe says something similar, effectively, that you show the world something about, like, as in, you know what I mean? Like you have a signature of you being more secure that then puts you in a smaller group of people who are using those obfuscation techniques, etc.
Can I take it one step further of something that really pisses me off, and something that we have covered in the chat before, in the Twitter space that we have? Yeah, this reminds me that people daily, it seems, are asking me what I think about the newest hardware wallet that's coming on the market. To which I say to them, well, it's a new gimmicky type of product, but can you explain to me what you're looking to get out of it? Because in security, more to your point, there is no magic bullet. We actually have to, we're a kind of a trailing indicator, right? We're a lagging indicator always, because we have to fix a problem as we see it. You can't blindfold yourself and empty your gun in the room and hope to hit somebody bad. You actually have to pick your target, point, and shoot. And more like what Day 43 said at the very beginning is, as part of a herd, the weakest and the slowest of us will get picked off on a 0 day, and then we will pivot to that point. We don't simply say, oh, I'm going to get this new hardware wallet because it has this cool QR code thing, and it's this air-gapped thing, and I don't realize that I'm actually broadening my threat surface, right? My vulnerabilities are all over the place, but I'm thinking that I'm getting a higher level of security.
You're the beta tester.
Exactly. So that kind of attaches to your point, Tangent, is that you don't make it either too complicated or fall prey to these gimmicky things, thinking that you're going to be one-upping, the attackers, when there isn't really something that you're satisfying. You're not knowing your threat vector. You're not accomplishing anything, after the fact. You're trying to proactively do it, and that's not the way security works.
And maybe there's another level where the context of reality changes over time. So like malware or viruses didn't steal seed phrases 5 years ago or 10 years ago. They just didn't. They didn't have the code for it. They didn't care. They did not. And 10 years ago, you could write down your seed words or your passphrase and say it out loud. And we didn't have AIs in the home listening to us. And so as reality changes, you just kind of get used to it. I bet you 10 years from now, your phone is listening to your keyboard presses, and malware has that capability. Today, it doesn't, but 10 years from now, it will. And so just knowing like what the local drug dealer down the street can and can't do, like the local drug dealer down the street can get into your home cordless phone. Okay. Like 10 years ago, maybe not. And 10 years from now, or Bitcoin conferences got hit with two-factor authentication resets on their SMS. So people would just go to a Bitcoin conference and be able to do password resets by attacking the SMS. Nice. That is a good storage mechanism. And so, I mean, your context, the context of reality, and finding something that works at 4 a.m. when you get back from the bar is really important. So security should be easy and default.
Keep a couple of 24-word seed phrases lying around the house.
That comment that you just made,
just as
yeah,
decoys, yeah.
Under the what do you call it? The coaster.
Hex Hangout. That comment that you just made reminded me that's probably very important for any of the hexagons that are planning to go to the HEX meetup in Miami, which because components of that event are going to be walking through the event halls and shit like that, you need to have your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth turned off whenever you are in public areas, and you need to consider any of this shit like that could be in like there potentially will be people there thinking, okay, these are going to be some of the biggest dogs in crypto in terms of wealth level. If there's some kind of way that they can blanket attack or try and scam directly or indirectly the people that are there, that is effectively a physical honeypot of people.
And your hotel network too. Don't forget.
Yeah,
you keep your stuff off in the hotel. Sorry, go ahead.
That's a good point. Yeah, you can't trust the hotel. You can't trust the hotel lobby. You can't trust the event conference.
You can't trust
the conference event.
Any network. You can't trust any network that's not yours.
I mean, you should always use a VPN on the untrusted networks and defend yourself. I'm starting to come to the conclusion that your phone number is actually your most sensitive information, more sensitive than your home address, more sensitive than your government secret ID number. It's the most sensitive data because
I agree.
And people give it out like it's candy, and it's like, yeah, your phone number, people can reverse it to a home address or different things. So if you can get a Google proxy number, that's great. If you can use secure messaging apps like Threema or apps that don't disclose your phone number, if you are using standard apps, if you can go into your settings and hide your phone number and don't use it, and if you have multiple emails, use one email to talk to people and don't use that same email to log into your bank. And so protect your phone number, and the physical honeypot is real. I mean, if you can get $1 million from someone at a hotel, it's like, how much are you willing to spend in order to get that? If that something to spend is $1,000, but yeah, so
Tell us about Threema. Can you tell us about Threema? How is it better than, let's say, some of the other messaging apps that people use?
Sure. So Threema, Threema, it's a German company. The servers are hosted, I think, in Sweden or Switzerland.
It's a Switzerland domain, CH.
Nice. And the keys never leave your device. So it's basically like a private key wallet. It generates the keys on your device. It sends up your public identifier, end-to-end encryption. It doesn't use any email or phone number account. It can be bound just against your public address or your public key. And it's designed to be secure. So I've done audits on their security designs, and they actually post their security designs. They have security teams. So WhatsApp has backdoors, and their company attacks you all the time. They have vulnerabilities, and they don't give a shit about your security. Telegram, it doesn't get as attacked much, but it's not really a secure app in any way. The encryption is like consumed from Signal and repurposed a little bit, but they post your phone number, and it's just not a secure app. Signal, I've always had a problem with your primary authentication is SMS. And if you it was recommended for leakers. And so the Washington Post recommended it for leakers. And it's like, okay, imagine you're sitting at a government office and you're going to leak some critical information, and you're going to go to Signal and connect your phone number. And in their public database, it's going to show your phone number just connected in Signal. And you're going to go to a reporter and connect to them over Signal, which again has your phone number. Signal didn't or doesn't, I'm not sure, encrypt the file attachments. So they don't give a shit about the secure information that you're leaking. And so it was just a good way to get leakers murdered. Same problem. It was recommended for protesters. And so you catch one protester and then you go through their phone book and you get all of the phone numbers of the other protesters. Phone numbers go to home addresses. Guess what happened? And I think that happened in the
Fuck.
Iranian protest, Syria protest. And so Signal, I recommend directly against, just because they pretend to be security, but they get people murdered and they don't give a shit. They do primary authentication over SMS. And it's like, that's, you don't even do two-factor over SMS. Like, that's garbage. They finally added a PIN code that helps a little bit, and it technically shows key rotation if someone man in the middle attacks you. So Threema guards against all of this. No phone number, no email attachment. The keys never leave your device. All of the services are bounced through Switzerland outside of US jurisdiction. Hopefully all of the attachments are encrypted, and it goes through yearly attacks. Like DEF CON has presentations every time there's a tiny vulnerability in there. And they do perfect forward secrecy, which it continuously uses a new key for your message conversations over time. And so a year from now, your key won't decrypt messages from a year ago is the goal. And so if someone like hits you with a wrench and steals your keys, they don't get all of your messages in the past. So
quick question, because I know that we communicate over Threema almost religiously together, or else you won't take my call. But I was wondering, didn't we once have a conference call between multiple parties on Threema?
Threema now does do conference calling, but they don't play well between Android and iPhone as of yet. But
right, and to the best of my knowledge, that is not encrypted. Is that correct? Because point to point is encrypted. For a multi-point call, I don't think so.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. Then that's a great improvement.
Oh yeah, and it does group chats, and it does a group key, and it basically encrypts the key against each of the participants, and so it creates a message key or a one-time key for that message group. Yeah,
cool.
Do you think like it's called Threema, but it's Threema.ch, which is Mac, 3 Mac. Do you think that's derived from Mac 3 as a name?
Interesting.
I never thought about it. That's cool.
CH is the CH in Mach. That's
3
cool.
Mac.
Or it's a triple Big Mac.
Do you need your friends to have this app to so everyone you want to communicate with has to have it?
Yeah.
I find that's my problem whenever I find an awesome app, is convincing everyone who I want to communicate with to take it seriously, because so many people don't care about privacy.
Oh yeah. And it is $5, and it's like, yeah, that's why the NFT community is on Discord. That's why there's security people using Signal, and there's stupid people using WhatsApp, or yeah.
Oh, look, dude, the paying one is also going to be a major hurdle for adoption. It's hard enough for me to convince people to get an app that's free, and them to not just message over Facebook. If there's a cost barrier, it makes it even harder.
Yeah, well, okay, but game theory, you don't want to be the slowest one in the herd, and you want there to be some weak, sick, stupid people in the herd. So good. So the fact that we won't get some secure people, and then the attackers will hurt them and leave us alone. So that makes you more secure.
Did you say there's group chats? Like, is there like a HEX group chat on Threema, or it doesn't work like that? It's not like Telegram in terms of you like.
So unfortunately, the group chats are, so far the groups can't be changed over time. So when you create the group, it sends out.
You can't add new people in. It's like whoever you start the group with, that's it. So you can do group chats, but not dynamic participants.
Yeah.
Obviously, people can leave. You just can't bring new people in.
And I don't know if you can even leave on them, but
it's like a mafia. It's like a mafia. Once you're in for life.
The keys are signed, man. And it also sends files. It sends video, audio. It does video calls. It has all of the features. But yeah, I mean, I don't recommend it for everyone, but so far it is the most secure communication app that I've found. Yeah. And the next one, if you want to do video and group calls, is Jitsi. That's been recommended. It's free, but you have to download stuff for it. So, but that was a good free group call program. But yeah. And
all right, well, we've been going for a couple of hours. That's about how long we usually go for. Now, just before we wind up, let's go around. Does anyone have any final words? Tangent?
Oh, can I go last? I need to. I was so
Yep.
thinking deeply about this private message thing because I had not heard of this. Like, I'd never heard of this at all. So I'm really
Papa
interested.
Boner.
Sure. I've just shill the Thursday U.S. time, Friday Europe and Asia time space that we run. You look for it as Hex Hangout and myself. We will tweet it out. Feel free to retweet it to our community. We want to get more people showing up. Although we did get a good turnout for the first two. The third one is coming a week from this Thursday on Twitter Space, and it'll be called the Hex and Pulse Community Security Roundtable. So please look for that, and please show up if you like what we discussed here today. We delve deep, and again, we're looking to try to get the best practices codified in our community. Thanks.
Awesome. Hex Hangout. Any
Yeah.
final words?
To the community, I would say trust but verify. If you're wondering about this seed phrase, go look up BIP39 and you can read all about it. You can look at the code implementation. You shouldn't ever trust anonymous security people. Papa Boner and the community know who I am, and I have a long background and I'm verifiable. And security, if it's a good security professional, they're providing you strength and capabilities and ways to deal with the situation in a positive way, and they're building strength. And shill security people sell you fear and danger, and you need to hide, and you need secret sauce, and they're anonymous. And that's the difference between real security and shills. And to the normal person, they can look exactly the same, but trust but verify, be able to validate your sources, and security should make you stronger and safer.
Legendary.
Very good. Very good.
My sign out is I'm happy to report I've just hit 8K followers on Twitter. I'm stoked about that. Thank you everyone who has contributed to that count. And this has been probably for me one of the most valuable streams I've ever been on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to thank each and every one of the people who's in the chat. Thank you, Papa Boner. Thank you, Hex Hangout. Thank you, Tangent. I think you've all said it. This has been very fruitful tonight. Bit of change of pace for us. There's usually a bit more immaturity, a few more dick and fart jokes along the way. But no, it's been great tonight. And yeah, I hope we get a chance to do it again in future. And yes, not this Thursday. Is it the following Thursday?
Yep.
Australian time for the Australian audience.
So like 9 days,
Friday.
9 days,
Friday.
9 days from now, 10 days from now.
Yep. Friday for the Australian audience. Yeah, so everyone, thank you, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.